Alright, hello, this is Josh with Logic Chronicles. Last time we went over the variables that went over here, that went into the quest manager. We went over and made an interface and should have kind of given the idea of how to get the interface working so the quest manager can do its job. We went over the quest manager functions. And then over here in the base quest actor, what we did was we just made some variables. We set up the save struct for the quest. We went over here and I went over the static variables that are going to be needed. I went over these relevant variables and what they do. Next, I'm going to talk about these dynamic variables. And these are basically the variables that are coming out of the quest struct that'll be saved and put into here when it spawns. So it was just, that's why I didn't have any of these exposed on spawn, just so it's neater that way. But you're going to want to save the quest status, which should be an item we made. By default, I set it to inactive. The next thing you want to do is you want to have this branching sort of situation. Okay, so we're going to save the branches. We're going to save, okay, this doesn't need to be full, but basically what we want to do is, before that, we have this quest index, which is just an int. So what we want to do is each step of the way, we want to keep track of what's going on. So at the first part, when you first start with the quest, 0, okay, you do something. Now you go talk to this guy. And say after that, what happens now is he says, okay, I want you to go find this man and go kill him and bring it back for me. And then it says, okay, now all of a sudden you go out, you find the person, you talk to him, he says, wait, don't kill me. Instead, go bring him back this hat, and he thinks I'm dead, right? So what happens at point 1, you have a branch. You can either kill the man, or you can go bring back his hat and say he's dead. And that's what this is for. So at the first step, that's what happens. Now, that happens, what happens to the next step? Now, we're going to increment this and say, okay. Now, at the next step, is there any branch options at all? Do we need any branch options at that step? At this step, are there any branch options that can happen? And then you can say, okay, well, if you, at step 0, did you take branch A or B? Okay, so now step 1, when we get here, we can say, okay, now that you're at step 1, what did you choose before? And that's sort of the idea, behind this. Alright? I'm going to delete those because I don't need it. The other thing we're going to need to do is the actual gather progress. So this is basically the index again, and then how many you have. So if you remember beforehand, what I was explaining was, as soon as you come into the world, right? Let me just get the quest active so you can actually see it. Not yet. Okay, now it's active. If I come over here, we had the actual display, what needs to be displayed, what is the character doing at this point, or what is the player doing at this point. Now, say you have them, they need to complete a certain number of tasks. Now, and you want to counter for each one. So you get money. This is the maximum you need. What that gather progress is right here, that's this counter. So I need to go get some money. Now, say if I come over here, I go grab this, I go grab that, I go grab this, right? Now, if you look at my counter now, it's getting incremented. That's what this is for. This is basically, we're keeping track of that information as it keeps going up. And how many times you grab something, okay? Now, the next thing is just the journal entry. So, like, we have these entries down here, okay? This is the first entry, okay. I say, all right, go talk to this person. Over here, that entry, did you talk to that person? Yes, complete. Is that what you're doing right now? Well, it's in progress. Did you fail it? That's what that is for, okay? Now, the next thing is the quest index. Next thing, quest ID. Just a way of referencing the quest. Alright. And now this date entry is just what I'm doing just for my project that I'm working on. We're just saving the information of when in the game, when did you get the information for each entry. Again, that's actually not too important. You can decide to put that in if you do or not. Now, with that understanding, I'm going to go back to the quest manager because there was a handful of functions that I've realized we should have done that before. Actually, for that, let's come over to the construction script in the base quest. And in the construction script, I'm going to break open this variable, this quest struct, which is right under here. I break it, and I'm just going to set all of these variables. All of these variables are just being set, and that's it. And they're being set to whatever was passed in here when we initially spawned this thing. So that's why this is exposed on spawn. None of these are exposed on spawn, otherwise there'd just be so many pins when you try to spawn in a new quest, it's just not worth it. So that way the quest can have all this information right when it starts up. Then after that, at the beginning play, you kind of do something, say, okay, the quest has started, let me go check and initialize the quest if it needs to be initialized. If there's something that needs to be done since all of this happened, let's go, you can just go through the process and do whatever you need to do. The only other thing we need to do is just quickly make this function right here. Make quest save, and then it needs to be a pure. And then what we're going to do is, this right here is, again, just something I'm doing. I'm just saving the starting date of when you started the quest, and I'm just passing that through. But the rest of these need to be passed in. And then we're just going to make a save struct. So this save struct, what we made, don't ignore the rest of this. Save struct is what we made. It's going to we're going to make it. And then there you go. You just throw in all that information, and that's what you're saving. So we're going to put the ID back in, the quest struct, or the quest status. You want to have the current ID or index of the quest where we're at right now, the gather progress. How many of those items have you actually collected? How many branches did you take and when did you take them? The current journal entries and whether or not they're in progress or they finished or whatever. And then it's just the date that I'm saving. Here I'm getting the self of whatever of the quest, and I'm getting its class and passing that through. So now with that, I can go over to the save manager, and when I come over to I think it's update quest information, come off here, we're going to call that function now. That way we can just get the information straight from the quest. That way it just updates in real time. And then we're just going to save that to we're just going to add it to the information. So we have the quest ID, put that in there. And then just the save quest, the save struct, put that in here, so it just updates the information. That way later on we can just save this from the quest manager and load it in and out as needed. And I believe that was the only function that I messed up last time because I didn't plan this out too well. And yes, it was. That's that. Now the quest manager, as of that, you shouldn't need to touch it anymore. But the quest struct, I'm just going to go over the last variables, I believe. We went over all those. And yeah, that's it. So now I'm going to get into some of these smaller functions here. Okay, we went over the construction script. Now these are my gets and sets. The whole point is this. Just get the branch path. It's pure. The whole point of it is just tedious, so I don't have to like get this, then find it. I can just put in the index that I'm looking for whichever branch, for which index that I branch at, and then return the branch just so it's easier. That's all most of these are for. They're not actually for, like, it's just quicker. And then this get. All right, I want to just put in the index, excuse me, and the branching that he's doing right now. That's all this is doing. This next one, before we do this, I'm going to come over to my debug so we have error messages, because this is very, very important. Under this error message, this is very, very important, because if you mess things up, you're going to sit here and be like, why in the world is this not working? And you're going to get really annoyed. And this is a very important debugging step, so that when you're actually like designing these quests, you can quickly figure out, okay, well, what the problem is. Okay? So we're going to do a sequence. Before that, we're going to have the type of error that we want to display and some details about the error is all we're going to put in. All right? That's what's coming into this. Now, the sequence is going to come off. The first sequence just comes over here. It's just kind of a border, so like we can separate all the other print screens going on from this quest print screen. So that way we can actually see this is what the error is. Okay. And we're going to say, and then right after that, the next one we're going to be doing. Oh, I did this back. This is another thing. This is going backwards, kind of, because the way it's going to work is it's going to print this first. So it's going to come here, and then it's going to print something on top of that, and it's going to keep going. It's just if it looks backward, that's why. Just so it actually prints in the correct order. So it's going to come here. It's going to. You can kind of ignore the order which I'm saying this in right now, because it's not quite the order what's needed. But we're going to come here, And the first thing we're going to print is we're going to say quest error, or that's redundant, quest error, and then put the quest name in that variable. That should be right over under static. So we're putting that in, we're printing this. This is the quest that has an error. Now the next thing I'm doing is I'm just kind of taking the color and just setting it to one uniform color. It looks all nasty and red because it's scary when you get errors. And then I'm gonna put delay, so that way, like, just for you debugging this, you actually have time to register, oh, it's on the screen. You have a little bit of time to actually read it. Okay. Then after that, I'm just printing out. Next thing I'm printing out is putting the error type, and then I'm appending to that the error type that you pass in, and then we're printing that. And the details is the next thing I'm printing. So I'm just printing the details of whatever the error message is, and then it's coming back to printing this. So this you might say, okay, well, this is kind of pointless, but trust me, after working with this thing for a bit, you're gonna be like scratching your head, like, why is this not working? What's going on here? But that's the point of this sort of setup right here. So just kind of, this is very important to make sure you do. Okay. The next thing is, before we get back to that, we need to make a couple other error checks. Okay. This first error check, what we're gonna do is we're gonna pass in here just an index, and we want to get the max gather amount. We're gonna get the keys, and we're just gonna see if you contain that. The whole point of this is to check if you actually put in the right index to search. That way, when you're actually looking up, okay, compare it. Okay, when you pick up a certain amount of money, did you actually pick up the right amount? So say you need 6 coins to pick up, you only have 5. We're trying to compare those two numbers. But first things first, we're doing it by an index. So you want to make sure that you did that right first, that you actually set this up, that whatever you put in here is actually what it's going to find inside the map. And then we're also doing here length to make sure, okay, does it even have any index to begin with? Did you actually set a maximum counter for this? And then if it did, let's say, all right, did you actually set up the counter right? Like, are you actually searching for the correct index? That's just an error message just to get it right off the bat. That way, you make sure it's set up right. At least this is set up right. So we know that there is some sort of target goal the character is trying to collect for, and all that. The next thing we're gonna need is this next index error. We're gonna pass in an index, and we're just gonna check to make sure both of those are right. Does that index actually exist, or does it even have any indexes? Is what it's searching for. If it doesn't have any index, all right. Well, now we're gonna use our error message and print that quest has no gather indexes. You didn't put any goals, and then the maximum index array is less than 1. Just let you know that you didn't set that up. That this you didn't set up. Now, all right, this one right here tells you it couldn't find it. So the error type is a gather index. Gather index. And then you find here, okay, well, it turns out you didn't put in the proper gather index. You couldn't find this index that you input right here. This input, we couldn't find this. And then off of that, did you succeed? Yes or no? I just put this here with a check because all we really care about is if it succeeded. By default, if you didn't succeed, it's just going to return false. So we don't have to worry about that. But that's what this is doing. That way we can check to make sure you did everything right. Now, if you did everything right, now we can come over to this gather information. We're going to check, did you make your indexes right? First off the bat. Now they did that, okay, check. Get me now the maximum index right here, whatever target goal you're looking for, and how much progress have you made towards that goal. That's the index we're finding. And then we're just going to return these and turn it to a pure and say, okay, this is the progress you've made towards that, and this is the maximum that you actually need to complete that goal. All right? The next thing I'm going to do is, that's gather index. Just we set the gather index. Okay. Let's get gather index information. Now we're going over to set gather information. So this is for the, I should really call this progress. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to get the amount that you have in, and we're just going to set it directly. Okay? We're going to check, did you actually set up the index correct? Yeah, you set it up right. All right, just throw that straight in there and change the progress you made towards that. This is meant, what I'm using this one for, is say you're picking up the money out here in the field, or out here in the world. We just want to check directly, correspond, okay, this gather amount, let's correspond it directly to how many items you have in your inventory. So say like you have some sort of shopkeeper saying, all right, come bring me back like, I don't know, like 20 necklaces and I'll give you something. But that corresponds directly to what's in your inventory. That's what this is doing. The next one is change gather let's say progress information. This one is say, okay, however many is there, let's change the amount by adding whatever's there to however many needs to be changed. The same sort of setup, we're going to do this gather check to make sure that you actually did it right. If you did it right, now we'll add. That way it kind of works out nicely. So again, like this one's like, okay, the first one is like a direct correspondence, so how many you have in your inventory. This one's saying, okay, let's say you just have to go out into the field and you collect flowers. There are a specific number of flowers in the field. You're not getting rid of them in your inventory like it's a special quest item. You want to know how many of these flowers did you pick up, and that's what this is for. Or maybe there's like a progress bar, like say you blow up a machine, or you blow up some sort of box, and it kills a bunch of enemies around it, and you need to kill at least 50 enemies. You know, that's kind of what that's for. The last one is just a journal update, just so we can update the journals. And what we're going to do is we're going to come here. I should have actually put on an error message with, okay, never mind, I'm doing that in here. So what I'm doing is we're going to check the journal entries. We're going to search for a certain ID. Does it contain this? If you have to preset this under statics. That way it says, okay, this is a journal entry for this quest. Yeah, you typed in the right journal entry. And check it. Yes, it contains that. All right, now update it into the dynamic one and say, okay, this is the quest entry and this is the current status. Either you just put it, this could be a number of things, like it didn't exist before and now you just updated your journal, you have a new entry. Maybe you got this entry before and now you're changing it from like progress to complete, because before you were in progress doing it, now you've just completed it, so we're going to change it. Or maybe it was now you just failed it, and so on and so forth. Now if you didn't find it, we have this one. Let's say journal entry ID, error type, and over here we say, all right, this entry was not found. That's this entry right here. We didn't find this. So at least that'll give you some like debugging room, so you understand, okay, this quest, I didn't set this up right. I missed this journal entry that I typed in here. It's not here. So maybe got to go fix my spelling or something like that. That's all that is. The last of these are just relevant checks. Okay. First thing is we're just going to break open this array. We're going to check, okay, is that actor relevant for this quest? So the next thing we're going to do is the actor class. Is that relevant for this quest? Return that. These are pures. And then this one is the only one that I've changed. There actually doesn't. This is kind of redundant because I don't really need that on a lot of these, because you're not really going to care about this. This shouldn't really be here. It's not really important. What is important is we want to just check. It's just an easy way of doing this, so we don't have to like call these functions every single time. We can just call this big one. It just checks everything for us. So we pass in the class, checking is it a relevant widget class for this quest, and that's all these checks are doing. They're very, very simple, just fast. It just makes it easy, so you don't have to keep but keep putting these into blueprints. They're just right there and there, and they're all pures. And those are all the functions for the quest itself. That's everything you need to do to maintain the quest per se. The next thing I'm going to go over, not in this video because I'm going to try to end it to keep it short, but the next thing I'm going to go over is how do I actually make a quest from here. All right? This is all the variables you're going to need for this quest system. This keeps tracks of everything, and you say, all right, that's great. Now it doesn't do anything. I'm going to show you how I actually create quests, and then going along with actually adding the displays for the widgets so you can actually see what's going on. But just so we can get a little heads up as to what's going to happen. Those are basically those are all the variables you need. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to the library, make a macro library, but make it specifically for the quest actor, so that only the quest actor, like this base, once you create a child off of this, those are the only things that are going to have access to this macro, because that's the only thing that's going to need it. And then from there, what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and make a bunch of functions, so that after we're going through, we have all of these as little tools that we can use to make quests. So if you look at my, like, one of these test examples here, right? Go through here. Notice we have a little bit of logic going on here, but there's a couple macros going on, right? If I go to another quest, you know, a lot of these are macros. That's you know, there's some logic to actually guide the quest, but for the most part, these are all macros right here, kind of like actually doing the logic. If I come over to, did I do this one yet? Yeah, probably. Did I do this one yet? Yeah, but you see how like a lot of these are just macros kind of like controlling things. So the whole point is we're just going to plug in these macros as needed, so that we don't have to just keep retyping all these things, because it's kind of redundant going back and forth and saying, okay, update the quest journal, do this, do this, do that, and it's like, it just gets tedious. So the whole point is we're just going to have this library, so we can start just putting in different tasks for the player to do. So once you complete those tasks, we can update to some journals, we can just go through and do all that stuff, so it's just a lot quicker. So like, if someone's designing the quest, all they have to do is come over to here to wherever the base variables are, set up the initial variables, or the static variables, like journal entries, target goals, or from gathering information, the quest name, just that. And then maybe put in some parameters, so not necessarily, put in some parameters just so they can filter out messages that are coming from the quest manager, and the rest of it is just handled as the quest goes. So the whole point now is just a matter of just giving tasks for the player to do, and just organizing the tasks in a way so that, you know, it appears you're doing like something. And we'll go over that in the next video, and I'll also talk about why I set it up this way. It'll make more context in terms of like quest design later. Alright, see you next time.